All right. Welcome to everyone who's joining us. This is our fourth session of the day with Winston Zvirikuzhe on business and data. Winston, you can proceed.
All right. Thank you, Leonard, and thank you to everyone who has joined us. This is a bit of a lunch session. We'll try to make it as quick as possible. I'm just going to take us through business and data. During the time, I'll also be introducing myself as we're going. So basically, we're going to look at business and then get to understand a bit about data. What's the implication? How important it is, especially when it comes to the performance of a business. So business in its own, if I can take you through the journey, is just looking at what kind of solutions are you providing to the stakeholder. So it's not just about what product or service am I selling, but what is it that I am providing, which is a solution to your stakeholder. And your stakeholders will vary. You'll have your clients, you'll have the business owner, you'll have the government, you'll have the supplier, you have the community, of which everyone is looking for a stake within the business to say, what is it exactly that I'm going to gain from the business. So from Unoya Consultants, we have a definition where we say your business management is the ability of a business to maintain a balance with stakeholders such that the business maintains being a solution provider to the stakeholders, which include the owner, the clients, the community, the government, and the suppliers. What this basically means, if you're failing, for example, to pay your taxes to the government, you're failing to then maintain that balance. If you're failing to provide a solution to your clients, then you're also failing to maintain that balance. If you're failing to provide a profit to the owner, then you're also failing to maintain the balance. The community also has a stake in the business to say, okay, we have a supermarket that provides us with food and all that. So that from a very shortened version is your business management side of it, of which every business produces data. So taking it from lowinsider.com, they have different variations of what data includes. We know from our data protection act that recently came into Zimbabwe, there's various definitions. So we look at your information that has to do with the consultants, the customers, the consumers, and how this data is then managed becomes critical to the success of the business or to the success of any stakeholder who's involved. Now, the key thing about data is it's very easy to give a technical definition about it. You can take data as a subject to some extent. So when you're looking at data, you're worried about the volume. What's the size and amounts of data that a company is going to manage, and how is it going to actually analyze it? You're going to look at the value as well. The value for me or for most people is probably the most important V in when it comes to looking at your data, because you're saying, yes, I've got the data, but what value am I going to get from it, which is the gist of this presentation when we're looking at business. Then we're looking at variety, the diversity and range of different data types that will be within your data. So you'll have unstructured data, you'll have semi-structured data and raw data. We're still going to go through this. Then velocity, I'm going to give you a case study on data and business, which will work together, and we'll come to a point where so that we understand how important it is to business. Then veracity, the truth or accuracy of data and information assets, which often determines executive level competence. So I have the data, but to what extent is it true? To what extent can I really say my data is fine? So this is just 5 V's. Some people will extend it to 7 V's, but we can always research about it. Now, as we are going, some of the most important things or questions to ask is, why is business data important? So business is there for one thing, to provide value to its stakeholders, which is achieved by being profitable. So the data that you have is basically an income statement for a business. I've got my income side, then I've got my expense side, then I also have the profit side. So the data that I have on the income side should be reliable enough such that the data I have on the expense side, I'll get more information about it as we go so that we get to the profit. We're going to dive into this as we then look at the different levels of data that we're going to be assessing. Now, revenue is basically the amount of money that you receive or that has been contracted to receive for a service or product. So some of the key data questions that will then come through is how much are we making? Remember the 5 V's that we're talking about, the volume of the data. When you now translate the data, you're worried about the volume of it. How much are we making as a business in the first place? What value is our activity giving us in terms of return? Because every stakeholder is worried about the return. What is the variety? Are we just looking at one type of data, or do we look at different sets of data? How fast is the data coming into our company? Is our transaction speed in our control, or someone else is controlling it? When we look at the veracity, we're saying, can we trust our data source as well? It's good to have the data, but can you actually trust the data source? So the same thing will also work for the expense side. Look at the volume of expenses, the value, the variety, the velocity, as well as the veracity. Now, let's look at two states of a business. You have business A and then you have business B. So let's say business A is serving 20 clients per hour. It's paying rentals of $800 per month. It's employing 5 employees with a wage bill of 3,800 USD. Then we look at business B, which is also a similar business. They practically are selling the same product, but business B is serving 50 clients per hour and pays rentals of 800 USD, employs 5 employees with a wage bill of $3,800. Now, you cannot improve a business if you don't understand the numbers that are involved in the business. So when I'm looking at business A, and business A is serving 20 clients per hour, and I'm looking at business B, which is serving 50 clients an hour, on a hypothetical view, we're saying that they all have the same expenses. When we are now doing a strategy for the business, our data must be able to inform us on what must we do. So there are a couple of questions, or rather several questions that we'll need to ask. For example, for business A, if I'm looking at the value side of it and I'm looking at the 20 clients, I then need the right answers from my data to say, are our 20 clients, are we charging the correct price in the first place? That's just an example. Because you might be serving 20 clients, but your pricing might not be correct. So if you don't have the right data tools or the right information for your data, you might just be operating, but without understanding whether there's value coming in with regards to your sales side, because that's part of your data. How do our prices compare to our competitors? That's a critical aspect of the business. Then when we look at velocity, can our transactions be faster than what we are receiving? You look at one retail site, which is probably saving 50 and the other one is saving 20. Have we put in the right systems to ensure that the transactions that are there can facilitate for us to have more? If we're not looking at the right data, we may never understand the velocity that we actually need to have for the business in terms of also the return that we need for the turnover for ourselves. If we don't have the right systems in place, we may not get that. With regard to the variety, what else do we know about our transactions? It's very key to then have a data mix or a data matrix to then say, from the variety of the business data that we have, can we understand more? What sales structure? What is our market? Where are we? You'll then find it becomes difficult for companies to go outside of Zimbabwe, for example, to go and compete outside when you can't get a handle of the level of data that you can then plan around in terms of making strategy. So making strategy is not just about the vision. It's also something that has to be backed by the level of information that you're getting from your data. Veracity. Are we really sure that we're getting 20 clients per hour? Is our system or our mechanisms really giving us the right data that we need to be able to plan for. We're going to look at differences between the big companies and the small companies. When we look at the volume, are we operating at full capacity? What is our optimum functional capacity? Our data must be able to give us all these different answers such that we don't make knee-jerk decisions when we are now strategizing for the business. So your data basically paves way for the strategy. If you are going on a strategy session and let's say, for example, people decide, let's go to Kariba or let's go to Victoria Falls or Nyanga, what data have you prepared to be able to enable your strategy to make sense such that if you're going to make a decision for the business, what are the things that your data has told you in the past 12 months or so? Or what is the data telling you for a forecast from a forecast position? What performances are you expecting from the economy or from the society? What predictive models have you put in place so that you're able to support your business? If we don't have those things in place, it becomes difficult, and you can't compete on a global stage in terms of getting the right things to be in place. So the business context of it, a global business is one with a global data strategy. So we know there are different global entities there. So we're going to take an example of Amazon. So this is data that was taken from a website called Lending Cube. These are statistics that were put in place in the article in January 2022. So some of the figures may be a bit different if we look at present day, which is today. So Amazon ships approximately 1.6 million packages a day. Okay, I think that's something that we need to then consider the level of volume to say, if you are shipping 1.6 million packages a day, that's a lot of business that you're doing, but that's a lot of data that you need to also be aware of as a business. So a person can sit and say, I want to expand my business. I want to have branches in Bulawayo, in Mutare. I want to have offices in Mashingo. And if you get those offices and you're now shipping 1.6 million packages a day, are you able to track those things? Are you able to make sense out of the data that you're going to be getting so that you can then be able to stabilize your business? So 1.6 million packages a day, that works out to about 66,000 orders per hour, which is literally 18.5 orders per second. So if we take time to think about that and say, it's serious business, and each item that is going out, each order that is being done per second, how are we accounting for? How do we then analyze that particular data to say, is our business performing the correct way? Then in 2019, we know Amazon made about 141 billion US dollars in retail product sales, which comes to an average of 385 million each day. So that's serious data that someone needs to be accounting for and having the right systems, having the right investment into the data. So it's not just about business. It's one thing to start a tax shop, but it's another thing to then say, I want to go global. If you're going to go global, you need a global data strategy for you to get there. So Amazon will spend 6.8 billion USD on advertising in 2019. That's an expense side, but that expense side is also linked to what kind of revenue are we going to be looking for. So a definition from Amazon says a data strategy is a long-term plan that defines the technology, the processes, the people, and the rules required to manage an organization's information assets. This is a definition straight from Amazon's website. So they're saying, if you're going to have a data strategy, then you then have to think about the long term. And in our case, or in our cases where we're thinking of strategy, we then have to think, what kind of technology do I need to have in place for me to be able to operate a business which can compete not just at a national level, but at a global stage? What kind of processes need to be in place for me to be able to harness the power of data? Because data is money. It's right now, we might worry about mining gold or mining platinum or mining different types of materials, coal or whatsoever. But you also need to have the right technology and process that can mine the data for you from your organization, so that you can then make the right decisions. You make the right data strategy. Your people, you just don't have people, it's a culture. You have to have the right kind of people to be within the organization. And this is just a definition that Amazon has put in place for everyone on their website. So it's something. It's not. It's a secret that is out there. It's not a secret that is hidden somewhere. So if you're going to compete, you have to think your ability to track your data determines your ability to fulfill your strategy. So in this particular slide, you'll see Apple will have different levels of money coming through. So you've got your iPhone, your iPad, you've got your Mac, you've got different services. So your services will get you about 68 billion. Your Mac is about 38.48 billion. Your iPhone is about 191 billion. So looking at Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, these are pretty huge companies out there. But they then have to have that data strategy, because the more you diversify your business, the more you need to be able to track your data. So most companies then will take it for granted that yes, I got the sales figure. But when you get the sales figure, what does that sales figure entail? What are the data items that come through with that sales figure? So I'll take an example of, let's use Apple, for example, on iPhone. Yes, they are selling sales of 191 billion. But for us to then make a decision, we need to know what are the regional areas in terms of the sales. What is the data for the regions? How many people are we using for us to make the particular sales? What kind of expenses are we experiencing for us to be able to reach 191 billion? What kind of sensitivity analysis do we need to do for our data? So there's a bit of forecasting. There's also a bit of looking back at your history. So your ability to track your data determines your ability to fulfill your strategy. So this is a key item for African companies, because I'm a proponent of Africa having its own technology and also having its own strategy. It's a very key area for Africa to consider, to say, okay, if we are going to become big and I'm an African company, what kind of strategies do I need for me to be able to track my sales and for me to be able to make sense of my data so that I can make the right money? So your data strategy, if I want to make 10% increase in profit, what must my data look like? What growth should I have? What is the effectiveness and efficiency? There's a difference between being effective and being efficient. Those are then some of the things that we also then need to be thinking about. My data management, do I have real-time availability? Do I have a particular board where we actually then look at our data performance and we can make decisions on the go? So today we see where our sales is going. What kind of decisions can we make for tomorrow so that our business can then move? So you find most of the time when a company wants to expand out of Africa, it's going to a place where people are literally living on their data on a daily basis. If you're going to compete with Microsoft and your Amazon, it's not just about getting the capital, but it's also about being able to manage your data as you grow. Because sometimes companies grow beyond their ability to manage, and in the end, they have no idea what's going on in the company. So your data strategy becomes very, very critical. We're going to look at structured data and semi-structured data and unstructured data, because all companies have this. So with your structured data, there's a high level of it makes sense. It's something that you're probably storing in your database, in your relational database tables or your Excel spreadsheets. Your semi-structured data is looking at probably it's on your HTML files or your JavaScript. There's a degree of organization and structure, but they still need some processing before it can be analyzed by a computer. Then you've got your unstructured data. Most of the data that we're now looking at most of the time is very unstructured. It's in images, it's in videos, it's in sound files, plain text. It can take different forms, and it needs more processing before it can be analyzed. But it's something that people can easily consume or understand. And where we are going with data now is it's becoming more unstructured, and you now need particular tools to make sense of it, so that as a business, you can find it easier to react or to plan or to create a strategy that can be a winning strategy in the market. So at the end of the day, it's all about decision making, making decision for people, for processes, for technology, for customer decisions, investment decisions. It's not some when you're making a decision for business these days. Back in the day, you could make a decision because you feel some level of inspiration. Nowadays, there is data-driven decision making (DDDM). It's defined as using facts and metrics and data to guide strategic business decisions that will then align with your goals and objectives. So this is from Tableau. If your business is going in a certain way and your data is definitely telling you that, if you look at the Blawayo side, the market is tending to only work when it's winter. Then you now need to ask the right questions, determine your business questions. What do we need to do? What kind of strategies do we need to do? Because your data is informing you on what to do. Even when you're creating an advertising budget, it's not just coming out of the blue and saying we're going to advertise, we're going to use 6.6 billion USD. It's about also understanding what your data is saying. What is your data informing you? I remember in the day when we would look at BCG metrics, and then would say there's the cows, the cash cows, the stars, all those different things. These things, you can only make sense of it if your data is giving you the right information. If it's telling you that a particular product is not doing so well, it will then inform your strategy based on what the data is saying. Sometimes you might make a promotion depending on what the data is saying. So maybe your data is saying during lunch hour, people want to buy more food. So that means during that lunch hour, instead of having one person serving, you'd have maybe two people, as an example. Instead of having the same number of potatoes coming through during lunch hour, you then multiply it according to the number of people that you'd expect. You're now using forecasting. You're now using your historical data. Your data is literally helping you to understand. So here we've got 5 steps to consider that are from onlinemasters.ohio.edu. So you determine your business question or your issues. What are the issues that I'm facing? You then strategize to identify the goals that you need to do. You then target your data. What kind of data do I need to work with? What do I need to do? You collect and analyze that data. Then you make your decisions regarding the findings. So your data-driven decision making, triple DM, it's very critical for the success of any business, whether you are in Africa, whether you are out there in the world, because everyone now is looking at data. As we see things like the World Cup going on now, each time something is happening, there's data that has been taken through, because it's important, it's critical. It's not just about what profit am I going to make, but it's also about how do I then engage the customer? How do I engage the client so that we make the right decision for what to do? So your decision making might include products to promote, new services to offer, which employees to reward, which days are the most popular for business, how much shall we charge in promotion to make more money, which products to cut, which branches to close. All these are fundamental questions that your data is going to assist you in making. So if you're not asking the correct question, then you do not need data after all. So asking the right questions for data to get the right use of data, that then becomes critical. You need to be able to ask the correct question. So business data questions come with the right language. What am I looking for? What kind of language am I supposed to be using in order for me to ask the correct question? Do we have the correct knowledge? I think there was a session on learning that was done just one presentation before the one that just finished, which was talking about learning in the company. Do we have the right knowledge that so that we can then better utilize our resources? So that there's less wastage, there's increased profitability, increased competitiveness, reduced employee turnover. All those are important aspects for asking the correct questions. When you're looking at your environment, for example, for Zimbabwe changes quite a bit. So if I'm in a Zimbabwean environment, I need to then ask questions which are pertinent to the environment that I'm in, such that those business data questions then become relevant. It's not about copying and pasting from the internet and then trying to copy what the internet is saying, but it's also localizing the question so that it can then become relevant locally before you can even think about becoming global. Because when you're now thinking global, you're now operating at a global stage. But first, you must conquer the local side of it and then make things work. Now, your questions are only as good as your people. Do you have the right mix of people within the organization to be able to ask the correct questions? Once we do not have the right people, it can become difficult. There must be a right mixture. If you have your yeses and your yes men within the organization, you may not necessarily be able to criticize the data the correct way. So we might know that we're not performing very well in Harare, but your board members or your executive committee, all they ever do is say yes to what the chairperson is saying. It means your data strategy may not work the way it's supposed to. Then, as well, your questions are only as good as the objective of the business. What objectives is the business trying to achieve? Remember, you are asking questions for you to be able to mine the correct data. When you mine the correct data, it becomes easier for you to then address the right fundamentals for your business. So, is your business a nonprofit? Is it a cooperative? What are your environmental concerns? Are you looking for profit? Are you looking to maximize? Are you looking to increase market share? Those questions are critical for your business data. So, in summary, business data is more than just technology. It is a culture that requires deliberate implementation. So we just don't wake up and decide that we are going to have a business strategy. We must be prepared to have a culture of it for business data. So one of the things that we've been doing in the past few months or so is we've been looking at how do you then leverage your business. So we've been developing a tool or rather tools. This is just one of them for business data management. So this is more of a data tool in terms of for a person to be able to analyze from a Zimbabwean perspective. Yes, we've got different data tools that are there, but we're also looking to see if I'm looking, for example, I'm looking at a payroll data here, and I just want to get a quick summary of it, of what's actually going. And I'm probably the business analyst, and sometimes I need to then work on it. I'll then want to be able to analyze my data and see where am I and what is it that I'm doing. So as Unoya consultants, we're then trying to create localized data tools that we can use that are easy and that everyone can access. So your data would come in different formats, but you still need to be able to do something with that data. Right. So in terms of my presentation on business data, I think this is where I will end, and I hope it has been beneficial for everyone. Thank you very much. Over to you, Leonard.
Hi, Winston. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for quite an insightful presentation. I know that to those who were watching now and will watch in the future, they'll extract a lot of meaningful value, especially with regards to data not just being just technology, but it being more of what you do every single day in your organization within your operations. So that was quite an insightful presentation. Thank you very much. We'll just wait a few minutes and see if there is any, if there will be any questions. Um, and then also just to mention that if anyone would like to get in touch with you, where will they be able to um, engage with you in case they've got questions with regards to your presentation or the tools that your organization provides?
Okay, I'm available on LinkedIn and just drop me a DM. Let's connect, and I'll definitely provide you with my details from there.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so we've got a question from Dananai who's saying, suppose you have equipped yourself with the necessary tools for business data analysis. How best can you make yourself marketable as a consultant in business?
Okay, so if you've equipped yourself, I'm taking it this is an employment type question to say I'll be looking for a consultancy job, some kind, or to be involved in a business. I think we, as Zimbabweans, for example, we've got a platform like this. One needs to really put themselves out there. If it means you're also doing presentations or doing articles that we can refer to, it would be good if I was to search for a business data question and I get to a blog that is from a Zimbabwean who is explaining how things work or how things are. Because you can only be as marketable as you are represented on the on your www dot. So it becomes critical also to put yourself out there. There are different ways you can do it. I hope I got the question.
All right. I hope, Dananai, you are quite answered. LinkedIn profile for the speaker. I think we'll share that oh, yeah, if you were answered. Um, then tag Winston on one of the Winston's LinkedIn account. It's
Okay, I think we are missing you there, Leonard. I think the network is playing up on your end. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. Maybe you can just let me know. But
yes.
hi, Leonard.
I Winston. Sorry, I didn't get the last part there.
Oh no, I was just saying we were just missing the last part of what you were saying, but I think from my end, If there are no other questions, thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming through to our platform. We do hope that we get further engagement with yourself and your team with Data Science Zimbabwe, as well as the community of data scientists and data professionals in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
All right. So that brings us to the end of today's proceedings. Stay tuned in for tomorrow. We'll start at 9:30 and we'll finish off with the rest of the presentations. Thank you very much for those who have joined us. Have yourself a great day and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.